on Twitter.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool.
That's what happens these days, right?
That's what happens these days. So
so I live in Brooklyn, and I am from Washington, D.C., though, and it's really important that I identify myself as somebody who's a native Washingtonian who grew up in D.C. in the 1980s and the 1990s, and I experienced what I consider and what many consider Chocolate City at its height. I grew up in a neighborhood that was an intentionally integrated neighborhood.
Because in DC, it was my first experience in being in a majority Black city. And the other thing I loved, and I was a social worker, and I had always done anti-poverty work, but DC was my first foray into Black wealth, Black leadership, and at every level. Yeah. I'm going to read a quote, and we're going to start talking about white men, and we're going to start off particularly with white men of privilege, white men with money and resources. And there's all sorts of privileges we can discuss when we're talking about white men. But here's a quote I want to discuss. You wrote, "He leads an organization that serves primarily people of color, yet has difficulty wading into race-related discussions." So this is such a common reality.
I mean, I leave with this idea that we don't need to be saved. Right. And people in philanthropy needs to understand you've been getting change on the cheap for a long time.
Okay, hold on. Virtual high five. Give me some right here. Those that are on the front line in education and healthcare, working with communities that have been oppressed systematically. Why are we paying them so little? Why?
I mean, it's like to me though, it has a lot to do with, it has a lot to do with distrust, actually. Yeah. It's rooted in distrust. It's rooted in often it would even be, I would meet somebody on a college campus who was a white guy who was able to get to college and via scholarship, and he didn't identify with the experience that he was having on that campus, and no one saw him. And that there's alignment in what we want. What we want actually is not different. It is that you want to have more stability in your life. You want to have an ability to build a family, and you want to be able to have a job that has meaning and gives you purpose. These are the same things that people of color want as well. I'm not your enemy. That's the harm that white supremacy does, though. The harm that white supremacy did was create a racial hierarchy. Right. The racial hierarchy itself is a harmful thing to white people. The world is changing. The world is changing. Young people are changing as well. They're growing up with an assortment of role models, of a variety of different, hues and experiences and identities, intersectional identities. That is beautiful, and that is important, and that is what's happening. It's what folks are saying is that we need a different relationship and pact as a community, and you're part of this community. You can't just live outside of the community and sort of interact with it and engage with it only in the ways that you want to. All of us have to engage with it in ways that are going to make us feel a little uncomfortable at times.